Hi, everybody. I'm Sharon Spurlock, Director of Family Support at the St. Louis ARC, and I'm so glad you're joining us today. My guest is one of my awesome team members, Leanna Sanders, who's going to talk to us a little bit about mental health and the holidays today, which is popular conversation at our office. So without further ado, hi, Leanna. I'm so glad you're here. Can you remind everybody a little bit about your role at the ARC and also kind of your background with mental health?
So I am a family navigator at the St. Louis ARC for families with kiddos who are ages 0 to 11 years old. And then I do some counseling on the side of that. My background at the ARC, I started as a practicum student with family supports and moved into Capable Kids and Families for about 2 years. And I'm now a family navigator. So I'm excited for this. The general information is going to be about mental health over the holidays. And I do want to remind everyone that if you do have specific mental health needs, either contact your own counselor or 988, which is BHR. We will not be covering specific things. This is going to be more of a generalization of how to have mental health over the holidays. So thank you. So as I was saying, here's the 988 number for BHR in case anybody does need that. And also a reminder from what Sharon said, this is a public platform. So if you have any specific mental health needs, please reach out outside of this platform if you have any questions. Also, if you have your own mental health provider, reach out to them or your primary care doctor and they can help you with that. We're also able to help you find any type of counselor that you need as well. Hardships over the holidays. So when I think of winter, I think of seasonal affective disorder. We think of that a lot of having the day be shorter, being darker out. It's really, really hard to get out and want to leave the house, which already kind of affects our mood, especially if we're staying stationary. This happens a lot when the sun is not out as long. Symptoms include fatigue, depression, hopelessness, and social withdrawal. So again, that goes with wanting to stay inside a lot more, and that can cause a little more of a depressed mood. Over the holidays, we see people that we're close to, and that could be triggering for us. It could be if we don't get along with somebody very well, or the conversations can be really hard. Or seeing somebody from the past that we haven't seen in a long time that can be really stressful, or even if we have somebody that we've lost and we don't get to see them anymore. So overall, the holidays and winter are full of stress, but we're here to kind of talk about how to make those a little bit better and a little more stress-free. So I do highly recommend overall thinking about therapy. Light therapy, I've seen a lot of people use just for the seasonal depression disorder. People can put those little lights on their desks. I highly recommend talk therapy. That can be really helpful just to bounce ideas off of somebody that's an unbiased person that is a mental health professional. They can assist with helping you understand and knowing your triggers. If you have a cycle of depression, where every time change happens, they'll be able to help you notice that. And they'll also be able to help you with prevention strategies that work for you. You can also figure out what might trigger you. So thinking about a family member that you might see, your therapist might notice that you're talking about them a lot more as the holiday comes closer, and kind of how you can balance that and figure out how to talk with them and have a good time. So I do highly recommend going to therapy, even if it's not something that you've ever done before, but if the holidays are specifically triggering, that's a very high recommendation.
Hey, before you leave that slide, Leanna, we had a question about a little bit more detail about light therapy. Can you talk about it, what kind of light you need to use? What does the research tell us about that?
So it looks like a little desk lamp. They're about this big. You can put it anywhere that you're at. I see a lot of offices with them. It's supposed to illuminate the same type of light that the sunlight has. It does not look the same. But there are studies shown that sometimes getting that kind of light throughout the day can help with your mood. So you're not feeling like you're missing the sun.
Yeah, I will say that back in the day when seasonal affective disorder was sort of just being recognized as a real issue, and light therapy came into play. It used to be that you had to spend hundreds of dollars on a light therapy box, but now it's pretty easy to get a light therapy light bulb. So it's not the same type of light bulb, but it's a much more affordable thing to be able to use and have in multiple environments.
So anything that's helpful. So staying in routine, that is something that is really, really hard to do in the winter, especially during the holidays when you might have time off. That's going to be a huge factor in maintaining your mental health. I know for me, it's hard for me to get outside, and I know others have that too because it does get colder out and it's dark. But just staying in routine will help you keep busy and keep your mind a little bit more at ease instead of being alone in your house. That can really affect your mood. Getting outside, this is also really, really tough to do in the winter, but studies show that it's really good for your body and mental basis to be able to get outside on a regular basis, even if it's just a 10-minute walk outside. Just getting some of that little bit of sunlight is good. That can really help change your mind. It's also a good way to start moving throughout the day. So if you have a lot of trouble getting up in the winter and sleeping in, sometimes the best thing to do is make yourself go for a 10-minute walk, and that can change your scenery. Finding support. So this can be family, friends, coworkers, or roommates. Really finding somebody that you can talk with. I think having that support that you trust can be really helpful. You can talk about how the winter is not fun. Holidays can be really stressful, and just knowing that you're not in it by yourself. I think making sure, especially if you do know that winter can be really hard for you and the holidays can be really hard, having those designated people that you can talk to throughout the time can be really helpful. You can also have them meet you outside for a walk or some exercise, because that can also make it a little bit easier to go out. You can have support in multiple ways. And then exercise. So that increases endorphins, which automatically helps boost the mood. And that can be wrapped in to getting outside and also having a support network as well. Having a counselor, or therapist talk to on a regular basis. This is really helpful just to know that you're not in it alone, and also somebody to help you think outside the box when you are going through these typical holiday stressors, and also just helping you learn how to have those conversations that might be really hard with family members. But also
So,
allow your
Leanna,
yeah.
if I don't have a current therapist, are there some ways that I can access somebody to talk to just on a short-term basis, or do you have any strategies about that?
Yeah. So if you get services through the ARC, all of our family navigators do have a list that we can provide counseling names to you. There's also psychology.com, so you can find that based on insurance and location. If you have a work provider like the ARC, if you're a staff watching this, we have H&H as well. So that's another good way to do that. So depending on where you work, you might be able to access something like that as well.
I just also wanted to add that the research really shows that teletherapy is as effective and sometimes more effective than face-to-face therapy. So if any of you struggle with being able to get to and from appointments, that's another thing to look into if there's an opportunity to have teletherapy where you can eliminate that stressor from the routine and maybe just pop onto the computer for a session with somebody.
Yeah, it's just super accessible too. So if you're really not wanting to leave the house, but being able to have that person to talk to, it makes it a lot easier to get to that. And then allow yourself to take mental and emotional breaks. I know I've been saying, get outside, go exercise, stay in your routine, but also give yourself some kindness. If you're having a day, just feel free to give yourself 30 minutes to an hour to breathe. Even if you don't really have time, sometimes that break can allow you to be more productive the rest of the time. I think a lot of us feel like we need to constantly be going, but allowing yourself to take that break is really important in helping you not burn out. And then circle of support. So this is kind of thinking more about finding the people that you're close with. Getting outside is hard. Meeting with somebody on a regular basis makes it easier. I have a neighbor that I meet in the morning and we go running every morning, and just having that person to get out the door and meet makes it a lot easier. So really trying to find that circle of support. It could be a coworker that you get together for lunch during work hours, somebody that you can depend on, and just know that that is somebody that you can share this experience with. Especially with COVID and working from home, it's gotten really isolating. So even if you try to jump on a Zoom with somebody, that's really helpful as well. All right. And then mindfulness. So this is all going to sound very cheesy, but I think something to focus on, especially if you are in therapy. You've probably heard a little bit about this, but thinking of mindfulness. If you find yourself in a negative mood on a regular basis, especially during the holidays, during an isolating time period, a really good habit to get into is thinking of 3 things that you're grateful for on a daily basis. That can be really hard, especially when it is really cold out and kind of miserable. That can be a really good way to start changing your mindset. Also, mindfulness meditation. I'm a big fan of that. That will help being aware of your feelings in the moment. So thinking about going into a holiday gathering, if you know that there is that one family member that you can never have a calm conversation with, this will be a good way to help you realize that beforehand and know how to navigate that conversation. Become aware of what people or conversations may be harmful to your self-esteem. Sometimes it can be really triggering if we do have those family members that we don't feel very comfortable around. So hopefully that can be something to think about. I did also want to mention something, it was back in a couple slides, but thinking about having those conversations over the holidays, especially if there is somebody that we don't really agree with. I think a big part is using the word I instead of you during a conversation like that. That can be really hard when we disagree with somebody, but it can make the conversation also go a little bit more smooth. So like, I feel like this is how things should be versus you always do this, which is kind of a calmer way to have a conversation and can really change the relationship and how that conversation goes. So wanted to put that in there back then, but forgot to pull that up. So I thought this was a pretty cute little image to think about mindful or being mindful. So being aware in the moment of how you're feeling and what's there. So when your mind is full, you're thinking about all your stressors, but then when you're being mindful, you're living in the moment and thinking about what you're doing at that time. So really, I appreciate mindfulness meditation because it kind of spills over into regular life, and you're able to be in that moment with people or outside with your pet, like they are in this image. And also I wanted to put on here 988 for the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. They're available 24 hours a day. The Trevor Project, and then DMH, which is great for developmental disabilities and mental health, for their Mental Health Mondays.
We do have a question, so I'm going to dig right into that. It's about disengaging during family activities. If you've got that kind of routine where there's always somebody that's going to pick a fight with you, is there a way to avoid even engaging in it or change the subject? What are some strategies that people might have around that?
Yeah, there are multiple things to do there. I also understand that sometimes those situations are unavoidable. I think going back to the I statements, if it gets really bad, I do recommend saying, this makes me really uncomfortable. It's okay to be upfront like that. And if it gets to a point, it's okay for you to either leave or ask them to leave, especially if it's inappropriate for you and makes other people uncomfortable. I do highly recommend the I statements, though, if this is a continuous conversation and you want them to be around. You can also put a boundary in place. Boundaries can also be a form of love and care, that you still want that person in your life, but you need a boundary to have them stay there. The boundary could look like, I'm not going to have this conversation about this right now, but I want you to be here. I enjoy having you here. That can be a really hard conversation. So hopefully that was helpful. I know it wasn't a specific thing for you, but
I don't think avoidance is always bad either. Sometimes if I feel a little bit stressed, I'll go to a different, like, it depends how big your family is, but I'll go help in the kitchen, or I'll go start a game with the kids, or I'll do something to move myself away from the space where things are getting uncomfortable. Is that a okay thing to do too?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. If you're able to, you can try to slip out of the room. I think that's also a good idea. It's like seeing somebody from high school in the grocery store. You don't want to be uncomfortable. You can avoid them. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, I did also pull a couple slides, and Leanna's been gracious enough to let me share a couple things too. One of the things I learned this year in a training about self-care was about that, kind of thinking about it in terms of three different areas: self-soothing, so that if you're already in a position of stress or anxiety, that you have ways to soothe yourself. And we expect babies to learn self-soothing, but then we don't give ourselves permission to continue that. So whether for you it's self-soothing to get some hand lotion and massage your hands, or walk the dog to the corner and back, or just put some music on for a few minutes, that's a really good way for you to manage some of that self-care. Then there's self-care, which is more proactive. So daily exercise or meditation or therapy might be more of self-care. But then the third piece of it, which I think we forget about sometimes, is community care. And that's what we hope we're offering at the ARC, is giving you access to navigation, helping to connect you with resources in your community, like a good therapist or a great yoga class or something else that's going to help you build those things. So it helps me when I get stressed out to think about those three specific areas. And you guys know how much I love Charting the Life course. So I wanted to also share with you this graphic. This was done by a parent about what she wanted in her life for self-care, some of the steps she wanted to take towards that. So if you look over here, there was eating healthier was going to make her feel better, reading more novels, having a date night with her husband. So feeling good about herself. She really outlined a whole lot of things about what she wanted, and then things she didn't want, like stress or feeling guilty for giving herself the time to take care of herself, or to just continue feeling like she was. So you guys, this is super easy to do. You can write this on a blank piece of paper, your idea of what self-care in the holidays would look like, what you don't want to have happen, and then building a few strategies here. Just by writing these strategies down, it'll help them come to mind when you're starting to have that fight with a family member, or you're starting to get overwhelmed because there's too many things happening. So, having a walking partner that you can engage with in advance, getting your respite services up and running, trying to give yourself permission to go to sleep and have enough to get 8 hours of sleep. And again, calling in that circle of support. So I thought it was really cool that this mom did this. This slide was from that same training I mentioned to you. And it's this clock that I love so much. And the clock is about finding time for self-care. And it's broken into tiny increments: 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and 30 minutes. These are just some ideas about things that you can do. If you just have 2 minutes, maybe make yourself a cup of tea, take 3 deep breaths, just do a couple stretches, pet the dog. I mean, there's lots of things that you can do in 2 minutes. Make yourself your own little chart, and it doesn't have to be fancy. Again, you can take a blank piece of paper and make 2 lines on it, straight down and straight across, and start laying out your ideas, so that when you are stressing out, you can stop and say, you know what? I can walk outside and see how the bird feeder's looking, if it's full or not. Or I've got a little extra time. I'm going to join the dance party and dance today. So you find time and give yourself that gift, because I think you're worth it. We have a comment: self-care can include doing things you've been procrastinating about that will help you move forward. What do you think about that, Leanna?
I definitely agree. I feel like there are things that I procrastinate all the time, and then I make myself sit down and do it, and it feels so much better. It's like a weight off my back. So anything that makes you feel good can be self-care. And I think even I heard on a training, somebody mentioned if you have mental illness and have to take medication, that's also a form of self-care. So if there is something that helps you manage anxiety, depression, anything like that. That is a form of self-care where you are taking care of yourself to feel better. So
Nice. That's really nice to think about. Are there any apps that you ever use for self-care?
there is a meditation app that reminds you to do it every day. I took that off my phone because it was kind of annoying having that reminder. um, but there are also I do like the kind of sleeping apps where you get the wave noise in the background. So you can have that in the background to do some deep breathing exercises. I cannot remember the name of it, but there's one where you can watch images and it's supposed to be really relaxing. So
Cool. All right. If you guys think that might be something that would be helpful to you, we have tech supports too. So feel free to reach out to us, because really you will be more successful in your life and more independent if you can take care of yourself. And that includes taking care of your mental health. So we think that's really important. I just want to talk about prioritizing. How can people use prioritizing to help manage mental health during the holidays? Because I find that's what stresses me out more than anything, is looking at my schedule and seeing that I've committed to 27 things today. Oops.
oopsie. That definitely happens a lot. And I think prioritizing can look different every day and dependent on your mood. I do suggest trying to kind of space things out, which is really hard, but it's also okay to say no to things if you feel like your body just cannot do that day. If you're exhausted, again, it's okay to take breaks. You can also try to merge activities if you have families in town, just saying, hey, maybe we can do this all together. If that's able to work. But I think prioritizing can definitely look different per day and how you feel. I know for some people, just being able to get out of bed can be the priority for the day. But seeing multiple people a day might be a good priority. So that definitely looks different for each person.
Thank you, Leanna, so much for coming today and joining us and talking about mental health. Everybody that's on this call, do something to take care of yourself. You deserve it. Thanks so much. Thanks for joining us.